Hello, everyone. This is Ferrante Frazier from Savannah Natural Health. We're talking about health today, like we talk about every Tuesday at 6 o'clock. We coming to you live with great information that we have for you lined up. We're talking about how to get a cocaine high naturally, how to get away from, cooking ourselves to death, and also about how we've been irritating ourselves with embalming spices and different things of that nature that we have now made for ourselves that's sitting right in our cabinet. We got what Egyptians used to use for to embalm their dead right in our cabinet. All right, so we're going to talk about that in just a little bit as well. We want to thank all our listeners and all our viewers for tuning in to this show of Natural is F. We're here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. We want you to go right now and hit like and hit share at the ATR platform. Throw a good word in there, say that you enjoy our show and share it with a friend. Tell a friend that, it's a good show that come on that teaches us about holistic health and healing, the more natural approach to it. So let's start off a little bit talking about this so-called this thing that I'm telling you about, this cocaine high. I know a lot of people may have used cocaine or know somebody who's using cocaine, but this cocaine itself is no different than well, it got a little difference, but it's pretty much the same as Ritalin, and how it affects the brain. Cocaine releases a lot of dopamine in the brain. All right, so cocaine usage releases a lot of dopamine. Now, a lot of us don't realize what dopamine is. According to biology and chemistry, dopamine is the chemical activated in the brain. It is like you'll say a love, like a drug. This cocaine is a drug that creates a large amount of dopamine being released in the brain now in areas such as the deep limbic system, and that helps us with causes us to become addicted. That's why we become addicted to cocaine because it releases a huge amounts of dopamine. Dopamine is like a pleasure hormone in our pleasure center, which is the deep limbic system. So we get pleasure anytime, like we do something great. We get this rush of a feel good. That's dopamine being released. But cocaine unnaturally allows you to get dopamine released in your body at a huge amount of rate. But the thing about it, cocaine don't last long in your system. It goes in, releases a lot of dopamine, and then it moves on. So it's not sustainable, but it dumps a lot, and it causes the user to want to use it again real quick, keep wanting to use it. So it creates that addiction and the constant use because it's short lived. Now, naturally, we can get this dopamine release because we get it released anyhow. A lot of people you may have seen that you can tell that a person is on a natural high. I know we've heard that statement before, a natural high. So there's a way to get a high that's better than cocaine, and it's sustainable. And not only is it sustainable, it doesn't do damage to the organs that it come in contact with. So cocaine, when it goes into the system, it destroys and inflames the areas, the pleasure centers in the brain, causing it to produce large amounts of dopamine. And so it does damage, it overworks it. So the natural way to do this is something that is familiar to everybody, don't cost anything. Matter of fact, you can get it freely, over the counter, under the counter, around the counter, on top of the counter. It's freely supplied to everyone in measure as however much they want to accumulate and put out. But we've seen individuals who look like they're on a natural high from simply falling in love. All right. So what is better than cocaine in releasing dopamine? True love. Now, a lot of us don't know what true love feel like because we haven't had that, wide-eyed, love. People on that cocaine, they eyes be wide open, and when they're in love, wide open for the individual that they are in love with. Some people you can see that be on that real high from being on cocaine. I want to share a study with you by this lady named, she was a psychiatrist by the name of Nora Volkow. She was a director of the National Institute of Drug Abuse. She performed studies in which she tagged cocaine with a radioactive isotope to see where it worked in the brain. So she tagged cocaine in a user with an isotope to find out where it is that cocaine is, where it work at on in the brain. When it goes into the brain, what does it affect, right? So it lit up the BG, which is the basal ganglia. Now, the basal ganglia integrate feeling and movement, and also involved with our drive and our pleasure. It would makes you want to do things. You know how they say cocaine addicts or crack addicts, they tend to, have a drive to go get some more crack. So they tend to be doing more stuff around here. People use cocaine to, boost their drive and different things of that nature. So it's giving people a boost. I know it sounds like I'm advocating cocaine. I'm just showing you that if you can substitute this cocaine with love, you will notice that it will give you the same drive and the same pleasure in your work, in your play, as if you were using cocaine. But a lot of us lack love. We lack love in our life, in our, in our work, in our play, everywhere around us. So without that love, we're not, releasing the amount of dopamine that gives us pleasure. If we don't love something, we don't take pleasure in it. We don't have the drive for it. So for us to get drive for anything or have pleasure in it, we must learn to love it or create a love in that very thing. But this reason, they say Ritalin, the drug Ritalin, when it was used as well, this is the same Nora Volkow, the psychiatrist. She also showed that Ritalin typically is not that is in the same place as the cocaine where it affects in the brain, but it's not as great of a power as is cocaine because the cocaine leaves the brain quickly, whereas Ritalin leaves the brain not as so quickly. And most people are given Ritalin because they suffer from what they call ADHD. And ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, where you have attention deficit and you also have hyperactivity going on in certain areas. So to not have attention on something mean that you don't have passion for it, or you don't have a drive for it. Like you see some of these kids, they can do certain things good who so-called have ADHD or ADD, meaning that they have attention deficit, meaning that they don't have attention for certain things. They lose focus quick. They lose, the desire to do things rapidly or easily. But when they, let's say they do something that drive them, like you give them a game to play, they'll play the game without problem. They have, because that's something they love to do, and they create dopamine in the brain, because if they get a new game system, they'll sit there and play the new game system with no problem. But if you put a book in front of them and tell them to read, they don't release no dopamine to drive them to pick up the book, but they'll pick up the joystick and play all day long. So the drive is due to them having dopamine released from what they love to do, or something that they take pleasure in. So that's what's driving them to do a thing. So you notice how in relationships, if you have love in the relationship, it'll drive you to do things in that relationship. It'll drive you to, be a nurturer, to be, and, help around the house, go out and cut the grass, buy flowers and stuff like that. It drives you because it gives you pleasure, you know, because you're in love, you're seeing that person happy and stuff like that. So love can give you the same drive that Ritalin can give you. It can give you the same drive that cocaine can give you, but it doesn't have the effects of the cocaine, and it doesn't have the side effects of the Ritalin. So love is the natural antidote to give you this dopamine release that you need to give you the drive in any area of your life. If you just learn to love the very thing you're doing, or get into something that you love and let that become your work, it'll never be a day that you work. It'll always be doing something that you love to do, and you'll have the drive to get up and do it. You have the drive to, work it. Whatever it is, if you love it, it's. I remember if we were talking, I think I was talking to the Love Alchemist one day, and he was saying that they love to do the massages because that's what you love to do, and you don't get tired. And you sit there and massage all day long. But if it became a chore and you didn't love it, your arms will get tired as soon as you start rubbing. So it's something, there got to be love where you can get a pleasure from it, and you can get this release of dopamine, this pleasure. This pleasure hormone need to be released. It's like your reward. It's like probably get a cracker when you talk or something like that. Or, the rat get his cheese when he hit the wheel a couple of times. So whatever you do, you get this pleasure in your pleasure centers in your brain, this release of dopamine, and you get this good feeling. You get this power energy surge that just make you feel all around just good. So that's the same thing, that big rush. That's what the cocaine person is getting, that rush. So is the Ritalin user is getting a rush to, cause him to, have some type of attention, and to, create some type of drive to him to move and do something and become a part of society. But love can cause a person to do just about anything. They'll climb a building, it'll drive you to do anything, to, swim a river, go fight, beat up a person, all type of stuff, for love, to love somebody. That releases a lot of dopamine as well. So this dopamine release is the deciding factor. So if cocaine releases dopamine in the same center where love releases dopamine, and love has the ability to do it just as well as cocaine, because these same psychiatrists, as they were doing their tests, they did an MRI on individuals who used cocaine and saw how it released pleasure in the basal ganglia area in the deep limbic system. And they also gave people who were, new in love, and showed pictures of them while they did SPECT scans and MRI scans on their brain, and saw that the area of the brain that lit up with cocaine usage also lit up when the person looked at someone that they really love and, had a desire for and took pleasure in. So the same area of the brain lit up. It was on fire, So love has the ability to give you the same high that you can get from using cocaine. All right. So we want to move on to a little something else. I don't want nobody to think that we're offering cocaine right here or hitting on cocaine so long. But we want to encourage you to always look at things natural, because this is natural as health, actually. So you'll never hear us talking about medicine, herbs, supplements, anything of that nature. Hello, everyone. We're back. Please do forgive us for the technical issues that we had. Uh, but we're going to tap right in this because we know we lost a lot of valuable time. But I thank everyone who stayed tuned to get the rest of the information that we have. Just take it that as a long advertisement or a long commercial at the movies. You know how they start the movies off and have all that trying to get you to go and get some Coca-Cola. They pour it and have you riding on the little thing and have you getting the popcorn popping all over the place and stuff like that. Just imagine it being one of them long things like that. But let's talk about the cooking, the popping of the popcorn and different things of that nature. You know, most of us have all our life have consisted on cooked food. And we say cooked food is from the devil. That's our topic, our second topic for the day. Our first topic was the, better than cocaine, but now today, now is going to be about the effects of cooking. You know, cooking is from the devil. Now you got to think about it. You know, in heaven there's no fire, nobody putting fire, on. But down there in hell, that's all they're doing is barbecuing down there. It's nothing but fire. It's like a big oven. You know, even you cooking down there. But that's a joke. But anyhow, yeah, the devil created fire, so we're destroying and killing our food when we put fire to it, and that's what you're going to learn in the next couple of minutes that we're going to be talking about the effects of cooking. Matter of fact, the first thing that we have to look at when most of us we don't eat meat raw, we eat meat cooked, and this meat have to be cooked in high heats and different things of that nature. So when you put fire to proteins, you deaminize the proteins, meaning that the amino acids they become different structures. You destroy the structure of the amino acids, and now your body uses protein to break down into amino acids to create more protein. In other like flesh protein. So you take the protein of an animal and you digest it into amino acids, a smaller substance, and then your body uses those smaller substance and put together and create human protein. All right. So this is done only when the amino acids are of the right character. But when you put fire to them, you make them unusable, in other words. So we've been eating and cooking our foods in many different ways. We fry it, we boil it, we bake it, we barbecue it. We do all this different types of cooking to our food that destroy the food. All right. Now, animals in nature, they don't barbecue, cook, boil, any of that stuff to their lion. You ever seen a tiger talking about, man, we gonna have dinner tonight, go and get the fire started, and we're going to roast us a zebra, a wildcat, or any of the so-called different animals that they run down and just start biting at the neck and chewing the gristle bones and gnawing at the innards and laughing at the blood and all these different things. They take it in the raw form, where the enzymes are still, and they're true carnivores. They're carnivores by heart. You know what I mean? They really were designed to eat meat, but they eat it in the right manner in which the body can make use of it. Their body can make use of it. We don't even eat the parts that they eat, and we only eat the muscle part mostly, and then we cook it and destroy the proteins in that meat by denaturing it. So that's one of the bad effects of cooking that we utilize. And then a lot of times we cook out, warm our milks for the kids. We fry eggs, all these different things, boil eggs. All those things tend to deaminize the proteins in those foods because those high protein foods. So the effects of cooking is real toxic. Now, the second thing about cooking, we render the fats in food unable to be digested. When they're unable to be emulsified when they are cooked, and changed. They altered with heat. Fat is altered with heat. So it tend to break down the emotions. The fatty emotions tend to break down when exposed to heat or high temperatures, and they're made less digestible. You know, they even develop fatty acids, free fatty acids, when they're being heated up. So it's ideal for us to stay away from that because that does a havoc on our liver. You know, even eating too much fat does a havoc on our liver. So if you eat a low fat diet, you wouldn't have to be worrying about that too much. And the only low fat diet that man can, exist on is the fruitarian, vegetarian diet, well, vegan diet, not vegetarian, because the vegetarian still indulges in milk, cheese, eggs, butter, and maybe honey and stuff like that, any of the byproducts of the animal. So it's ideal that we even stop the cooking because it causes a lot of mineral loss in our food. Because think about it, when you're cooking, you usually cook your greens in water, and when you look at the water is the color of the greens, and all you have that you're putting, you don't drink the water, you pour the water out, or you let it evaporate out of the pot, and all you left there is with cardboard, some greens that have no nutritional value now because it done leached all into the water. And then you go and put salts and other seasonings on it to enrich it back to its natural, to have a taste to it because you done, ball out all the taste out of the food. A lot of times we even wash the food to the point that we destroy the food value. Now, also, we got cooking destroys the plant form. If you notice that once you can have spinach that look big as I don't know what, and then soon as you throw it in the pot, it just shriveled up into nothing. So the food become, and even bell peppers. If you eat bell peppers raw, it's easily chewable and digestible. But when you saute it, cook it, or steam it, or anything like that, the outing, the shell of it becomes hard and unchewable. A lot of the vegetables are hard to chew after you cook it. And a lot of times people say it make it more digestible. Now, certain ones do become more digestible, like broccoli. If you cook broccoli to death, it actually disintegrates in the pot until it just become a mush. You get a mush that, and cauliflower and other certain vegetables, they become a mush once you cook them a lot. But there are certain ones that tend to get more rough and hard as you cook them. So we have objections to cooking the vegetables, the plants, because they're being destroyed. Now, also, we notice that when we're cooking our food, we tend to, like starches, for example, they become less digestible and more prone to fermentation when we cook it. So we're destroying our carbohydrates. When you put heat to sugar, you tend to caramelize it, or you tend to make it less useful in the body. So, we fry potatoes, we boil potatoes, we bake potatoes. We have all kind of different, we saute them. We do all type of things. We hash them. We cube them. We do all kind of stuff to the potatoes, all the starches, the bread, the rice, the noodles, all these carbohydrates, starch foods that we utilize, we cook, and the body cannot make use of them. And then we don't salivate them properly. To break down carbs, we have an enzyme in our mouth called amylase. All right, they call it Thailand, but it's amylase, salivary amylase, and it breaks down. It's called the sugar splitting enzyme. because it splits carbohydrates into simple sugars. It splits carbohydrates into simple sugars. All right. So when you have a complex carb such as bread, potatoes, noodles, or something like that, they have to be breaking down into simple sugars, and the enzyme that does that is in your mouth. Now that requires proper salivation to mix with it. But when you have, most of us, we chew and swallow the food down quick when it's hot. Um, we tend to chew quicker when the food is more of a mush. Like, for example, you got mashed potatoes. It don't take long for you to chew mashed potatoes. Matter of fact, you slurp that and it's going down. So it's not getting properly digested. So the food is going to favor fermentation in the digestive tract. So we suggest that you stay away from cooking your starches as well. I know you say, well, what are we going to eat, buddy? You're telling us don't cook no meat. You're telling us don't cook no carbs. But also cooking destroys the vitamins in foods and impairs or completely destroys their anti-ascorbic factor. So your vitamins that are in your food are destroyed under heat. Vitamin C under certain heat is destroyed. So if you're eating your spinach because you're trying to get iron and vitamin C and stuff like that, not only is it being leached into the water and being poured off, but it's also being destroyed by the heat and evaporating in the air, and it's just oxidizing. Anytime oxygen reaches in with the heat, it oxidizes the food value. So that is something that we want to look into as well. All type of vitamins, not just vitamin C, vitamin B, vitamin D. All these delicate vitamins are unstable or even lost or destroyed under, in many ways from heat. Foods that are cooked and held over to the next meal also allow for more vitamins to escape. So having leftovers is not ideal as well. If you notice in the Bible, when Moses was in the wilderness with the children, they were told to eat what they can eat now and don't have nothing left over because the food spoils, it rots. After it been left out, cut, and different things of that nature. So food that you want to eat your food right then as you prepare it. The more you cook the food, the more you the heat, the higher the temperature that you cook the food in, and the longer you let the food sit out, the food destroys. If you notice food if you go to a buffet, when they put the food out, when they bring the food out, it's like fresh and it's whole. But after it sit on the bar for a long period of time, it look wilted, it look dried up and different stuff like that. It just don't look healthy anymore. So this is the same thing that's going on in our kitchens as well. So it's ideal that we eat our food just as it being prepared, less cooking. It's more vital for you to regenerate your body. You're not cooking for taste. A lot of people, they want to eat just for taste. We're not cooking for taste. We're eating to nourish our bodies. That's the main reason. But cooking drives off part of the food into the air as gases. So that's what you see that smell. You're talking about, oh, I can smell the food all through the house. You know what I'm saying? That aroma is all the vitamins and minerals that's escaping out of the food. So that's another issue, that we want to stay away from. It's nothing but the devil. It's nothing but the devil. All right. So cooking changes the flavor and odor of foods and renders, them less palatable. They're no longer tasty as they would be in their natural state. It alters the color of the food. You can cook some bell peppers, the red bell peppers, and then they look orange when you get finished. You have some bright green, broccoli, and then next thing you know, you got some mush that look pastel color. So all the different fruits and vegetables and different things take on a different nature after they've been destroyed by fire for long periods of time, and in the manner that they were cooked. Not only is it that your temperature plays in with destroying your food, but also what you're cooking the food in, and the manner that you're cooking the food in. Cooking food wastes much of its food elements and all of its nutrition. So it's kind of ideal that you kind of get away from that. But also, a lot of times we tend to cook frozen food. Frozen food should be stayed away from, because frozen food is pretty much food that we get, frozen food, food that's in cans, food that's in boxes, all that stuff need to be stayed away from. Those foods have been, like in cans, been cooked already, and been sitting in the can for since it's left the manufacturing plant. That could have been, the warehouse could have been for a couple of months to years. Some of that stuff sits on the shelf and have an expiration date 3 years after it's been on the assembly line, and it's been sitting in this can for God knows how long, just breaking down. Also leaching out a lot of the elements of the can, the metals and stuff, into the food as well. And also, you also got this frozen food that is free, fresh frozen. It destroys the cellular value of the food. If you notice that if you freeze watermelon and then throw it out, the watermelon is of no good, of no value. So is the banana. So is a bunch of other fruits and vegetables that once frozen, they lose their value. They lose their structure, their sustenance. Their taste is all off, And then you have that freezer taste that is not ideal as well. So frozen foods is objectionable in our concept of eating fresh, wholesome foods as well. And the barbecue, which you notice that tar is the main thing that results from barbecuing your food. Now, this tar is pretty much the same as tar that you get out of the back of a cigarette, or at the pipe that you, after smoking, or the tar that you see from coffee and tea and different things that you see left behind. All that is offensive to the digestive tract and offensive to the body at whole. Just as tar is offensive to the lungs in smoking, so is tar offensive to the digestive tract in eating. So those foods that we tend to get the burnt endings, those burnt endings is tarred food. It's this charred tar food, So that is equivalent of just smoking the tar from the tobacco in the lung as it is in eating the tar into the stomach. So cooked food is from the devil. Stay away from it, So that is our objections to eating cooked food. But we want to tell you about the benefits of eating uncooked food, which is uncooked food. They require more chewing. It's give your teeth exercise and get your mouth exercise. Chewing. We won't have all these fat jaws around here and double chins if we would just chew our food and eat more foods that require more chewing. You can't just huff down an apple. You can't just huff down, pears and peaches and plums. They require you to chew them things up. You can't just swallow a head of lettuce, anything like that. You got to chew that lettuce. You're not just going to hoof that down. You're going to choke yourself, So it requires you to chew. So you chew, you get, exercise in your jaw and all. And in doing so, you get proper salivation. All that chewing mixes up with the salivary glands, so it starts the digestion of the food right there in your mouth as it mixing up with the enzyme. And uncooked foods are, where you're losing 50% of your vitamin C by cooking the food in less than 10 minutes. Eating the food raw, you get the whole 100% of the vitamin C. You get the whole 100% of the vitamin D. You get the whole 100% of the biotin, thiamine, all the other B vitamins and stuff like that. So all your vitamins are intact when you eat the food in the wholesome self. So there's no, you don't have to go to the store looking for, I need to get some supplements. I need to get some, vitamins and stuff like that. Them one a day for man and one a day for women. You won't need that if you eat your food in the raw state and uncooked state, because you'll be eating food that is, jam packed with all of its vitamins and minerals intact. Because you ain't burning them out, you ain't leaching them out, you ain't gassing them out. So your food is your supplement. You don't need to supplement something that is adequate. So if your food is adequate, there need no supplementation. So uncooked foods tend to prevent bad combinations too. When you're eating the wholesome foods, you don't have to salt your foods, you don't have to season your food, you don't have to have all these pernicious combinations together and different things of that nature. You tend to want to eat monomeals. When you're sitting there eating grapes, you don't go reaching for a whole bunch of other stuff. Either you sit there and just eat grapes. If you're eating watermelon, you cut up a watermelon, you're usually just going to eat the watermelon. You don't combine it with a whole bunch of other different things. You're not sitting there eating a piece of chicken and a watermelon together. It's just not a combination that sounds good. We got a question that says, so how would one eat any kind of starch without cooking, such as rice, pasta, potato, or are you suggesting only fruits and vegetables? Yes, we would suggest that you eat predominantly fresh fruits and vegetables. But there is, potatoes eaten raw is okay. I know a lot of people who does do that. It just, once you clean your palate and start eating fresh, wholesome foods, you'll have a taste for those, foods in the raw form. It's just that you've been eating cooked food so long that you're addicted to the cooking effect and the seasonings and different things that come along with it. Because the average person don't like the food until it's cooked and seasoned. If they was to eat that food in the raw state, they tend to don't even like it, like steak and different things of that nature. So if the food is not palatable in its raw state, it's not an ideal food for the diet. If it can't be eaten in its raw state, then it should not be eaten at all, because it's not designed for man, because cooking wasn't designed for man. That's an art that was brought about, after man discovered fire. Before fire, he wasn't eating anything cooked. He was just eating from the land and was, he lived many, many years, decades, generations, ages before, there ever was a stove or pot, a campfire, anything like that, before fire was even, ever existed. So I would suggest, for optimum health, remember we here Natural is Health. For optimum health is to eat, raw, fresh fruits and vegetables in their natural state. Even get the vegetables that are tender, and young. You want to eat those ones that's easily digestible, not when they become hard and big and rough like they got going on in the store now. They got some monster vegetables that they growing. Those you kind of want to stay away from. But a lot of those grains, though, they tend to sprout those to allow you to eat them. Just letting your rice to soak in some water and it'll fluff up. Just like if you don't have to put fire to it, take a little longer, but when you put fire to it, you destroy the enzymes in them. So the enzymes are no longer able to break the food down. And we talked about enzyme nutrition last week. So it's natural ways of doing it, just putting it in cold water and letting it eventually soak up that water and fluff up. That's the way it wouldn't be cooking, you'd just be soaking them. It's like a sprout, in other words. So that would be more ideal. And we also got this concept of using the waterless cooker. That would preserve a lot of more of your vitamins and minerals if you get a waterless cooker. That's something you might want to look up. I'll share some sites on that next week. So be up here and with others and share it and tell them about, we're going to look up this waterless cooker. But also, like I said, use the techniques of just sprouting, learn about sprouting different grains and things like that if you wish to have that in your diet. But the ideal diet is to just eat fresh fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds in the right combination when hungry. All right, chewing and tasting the food tends also to prevent overeating. You know, when we're eating uncooked food, we tend not to eat that much. You never see a person overeat on bell peppers or, cucumbers, lettuce, and tomatoes and stuff like that. But on oxtails and gravy, the ribs and chicken, all that stuff, they overeat it. Grits and bacon and eggs, we stuff ourselves to death. We can't get enough. Those foods are void of nutrition. That's why the body is steady craving food and steady telling you eat more and more. And then the condiments that we have along with them destroy our body as well. If you notice that our condiments that we use are condiments that used to be a part of embalming in Egypt. All right, Egypt used to use salt to embalm their dead. You used to use these different spices and different things to, put along the dead to stop them from smelling, to preserve them. They were preservatives and additives. And when they left from preserving the dead, they started preserving their meat with that. So the salts and stuff were preservatives to keep meat, before they came up with the refrigerators and freezers and different things of that nature. So the salt became a part of the human diet when the meat was preserved and the spices were in the meat, and they were cooked with the spices and salts still intact in them. And then man started eating it with that seasoning. But before then, it was just eating just the flesh without the salts and spices. Only until we started preserving our meat with the salts and because that was the preservative. Salt is a dehydrant. It will pull water out of anything. They still use this technique to this day in curing bacon and stuff like that, and curing ham and different other meats. They would just salt them like fish and different things to cure them, to pull the water out of it. But if it's doing that to the meats that we're eating, what do you think the salt doing to us when it goes in our body? It's dehydrating us and pulling all the water out of our body, and our body is 70 to 80% water. But when we're drinking and eating a lot of salts, we're dehydrating that balance of water out of our body and causing us to have a lot of the issues that we suffer from in this day and age due to our inability to have this chemical property in our body. So we suffer a lot. We have the heart palpitation, we have the dryness, and we have all the other issues going in our body because we can't produce enough urine. So we have toxins building up in our blood. We don't have adequate blood because we don't have no chemical to have the blood flowing through our body. So our body tend to have issues. We have sicknesses that develop from just this very dehydration alone. We don't have access to our brain. Our brain must stay in a good watery solution, and stay, permeable. So all of this is necessary for us to keep sound health. Also, salt itself is a poison, we know, because in China, they were actually committing suicide by using salt water. The children would, teenagers were killing themselves by putting a lot of salt in water and drinking it, and they will automatically dehydrate themselves to death. It's just like if you go into a saltwater ocean and you sit there, you'll drown quick and kill yourself if you were to take in any of that water. It would dehydrate you. So salt is a protoplasmic poison. It goes beyond the cellular barrier into the cell and irritates the cell to death and destroys the cell until it just busts from dehydration and dry rot. So this is going on in our body constantly. But now think about a lot of people who suffer and talking about they feel tenderness in their, arms and legs and different stuff like that. Now listen to that word tender. Now every Thanksgiving we have a big turkey sitting on the, mama pull out a big turkey and she gets salt water and she injects salt water into that turkey. Now, salt water is considered to be brine. Now, that brine tenderizes, break down the proteins in that raw piece of meat. You inject that salt water in there, and it just start tearing down the fibers and breaking down that meat, that it becomes just a fall off the bone when you cook it. So imagine us when we're injecting our body with huge amounts of salt, and we're drinking water, you know, that have all that water, that fluid build up in certain areas. We're talking about, oh, so tender there, because we're brining ourselves. We're tenderizing ourselves up for the slaughter. All right, so it's ideal that we stay away from these condiments, and we love to relish our condiments. We catsup, we relish, pickle relish, we vinegar, and vinegar is straight up acetic acid poisoning that destroy the liver. It destroys the liver quicker than alcohol will, and cause cirrhosis of the liver. Even the peppers will cause cirrhosis of the liver. So a lot of us are suffering from liver issues, and we never drunk, and we wondering what's going on here. I've never drunk. What I'm doing with cirrhosis of the liver? Yeah, but pepper, you pepper everything. You got black pepper to death on everything, and using this cayenne pepper, and this wondering why you're suffering from digestive issues, burning in the digestive tract, ulcers, and different things of that nature. The doctor is now telling you this stuff because it's become apparent. You know, so we have to pay attention to the things that are causing us issues. And if older people are saying, well, I can't eat that stuff no more because it hurt my stomach. I used to do it a lot, but I can't do it no more. And they're telling you I can't eat the way I used to eat. The doctor telling me not to eat so much. This is stuff we should have been doing when we were younger. And we should be teaching our youth not to overindulge, that they become just like us. You know, so we should see that eating proper is more ideal for creating health, and eating toxic actually destroys health. I did a little quick wrap up on this because we lost a lot of valuable time doing our little commercial break, our little cinema break. But we want to thank you for staying tagged in with us and allowed us to come back up here and run through this beautiful information about how to properly take in, your food, where it can nourish your body. We want to thank y'all from Savannah Natural Health and Natural is F. This is your holistic practitioner, Ferrante Frazier, out of Savannah, Georgia. Our number is 912-227-9335. Let us help guide you to a pristine way of health using the modality called natural hygiene. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you next week, 6 p.m. here live. Thank you, and best of health and happiness. Get ready for the next show, Alicia Blakely.